A group of survivors had set up a massive shredder on the only bridge leading to their shelter, effectively keeping the zombies at bay. However, even the strongest fortress can crumble from within due to internal conflict. Several months earlier, on an ordinary morning, a humble fisherman named Gisigu was going about his daily routine, cleaning fresh fish. As he skillfully gutted the fish, to his shock, one of the gutted fish sprang back to life, flopping around. To his disbelief, all the other fish he had cleaned began to thrash as well. In all his 60 years of fishing, Gisigu had never seen anything like it. Taking no chances, he immediately called his son, Trailer, the local sheriff. When Trailer arrived in his patrol car, Gisigu eagerly showed him the bizarre, still flopping fish carcasses. Though experienced, Trailer was deeply unsettled by the sight. Deciding on drastic measures, he opted for a straightforward, if harsh, solution. If something couldn't be handled, it needed to be burned. But just as they prepared to proceed, the trunk of Trailer's police car began to shake. Dread washed over him. Inside was the body of a dog that had been poisoned earlier. With his years of law enforcement experience, Trailer knew he needed to act quickly. He emptied his gun into the trunk, then, with his father, set the dog's body on fire to ensure it wouldn't come back. Unfortunately, this bizarre event was only the beginning. Trailer soon received a call from the station. His troublesome sons had gotten themselves into jail once again, tarnishing his reputation as sheriff. Frustrated, he rushed to the holding cell, ready to reprimand them. But what he encountered was far worse. One of the detainees was on the ground, writhing in agony and vomiting blood. The man looked like he didn't have long to live. Sensing escalating trouble at the station, Trailer quickly unlocked the door to check on the situation. As he approached, the detainee suddenly went berserk, lunging at the officers. Trailer rushed in to help, but in the chaos, the man tackled his eldest son, Joseph, and savagely bit into him. It took multiple officers to restrain the frenzied detainee, locking him away in a separate cell. Even after the struggle, the suspect continued thrashing violently. Soon after, Joseph's mother, Joss, hurried him to the hospital where she worked, believing a tetanus shot would be necessary. But no sooner had they tended to Joseph than the hospital was overwhelmed by a series of biting incidents, causing some of the staff to flee in panic. Unbeknownst to everyone, a horrifying zombie virus had begun to spread through the small town. Meanwhile, oblivious to the escalating outbreak, Trailer responded to a routine domestic dispute call, unaware that the woman involved had already become a zombie. As soon as she saw Trailer, she lunged at him, biting into his arm. In excruciating pain, he managed to push her away and scrambled to his patrol car to grab a first aid kit for his bleeding wound. But moments later, the zombified woman followed, knocking her dazed husband to the ground. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Trailer quickly restrained the frenzied woman and led her away as her confused husband watched in horror. Driving the injured man to the hospital, Trailer was starting to grasp the true extent of the growing crisis. Trailer received a radio call from dispatch informing him that widespread violence had erupted throughout the town. His wife, Joss, had also left him an urgent message, warning that a terrifying zombie virus was sweeping through their small Indian town. As Trailer drove to the rendezvous point, he noticed an ambulance stopped on a bridge. To his shock, it was his wife, Joss. She appeared shaken, having clearly gone through something horrifying. Without hesitation, she grabbed Trailer's gun and shot the driver, who had begun to rise from the dead. Inside the ambulance, they discovered Joseph locked in, being attacked by a zombie. Desperate to save his son, Trailer shot the door open, but as the zombie Joseph had kicked away landed on Trailer, he found himself struggling. Just in time, an older man wielding a chainsaw came to their rescue. It was Gisigu, Trailer's father, arriving with his team to help. Realizing that these reanimated zombies couldn't be killed easily, they understood that the only solution was to burn them. Within days, the entire town was overrun by the zombie outbreak. Both Trailer and Joseph had been bitten, which would normally spell doom as they would soon turn into zombies themselves. However, the story took an unexpected turn. The screenwriter introduced a twist: the concept of a destined bloodline. Simply put, anyone of Native American descent was immune to the zombie virus, while others were not so lucky. Most of the nearby white population turned into zombies within a few months. Under Trailer's leadership, a safe refuge was established, primarily composed of Native Americans. They built high walls around their settlement and set up multiple checkpoints at the only bridge leading to the refuge. With dedicated guards and strict security measures, they ensured the safety of the community. One day, Joseph returned from patrol with a group of survivors, but this act of kindness turned into a serious issue. During the security check, a man carrying his barely conscious daughter was trying to conceal her condition. Lysol, Trailer's younger son, noticed bite marks on the girl's neck and immediately took down the man. When Joseph attempted to intervene, Lysol angrily accused him of endangering the safety of the entire refuge. He handed the man a knife and coldly said, "If you want to come in, you need to deal with your infected daughter yourself." As tensions mounted, Trailer arrived with his team. After assessing the situation, he decided to shelter the uninfected survivors. As for the infected girl, Trailer took on the burden of euthanizing her humanely. Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, another infected woman slipped through unnoticed as her bite wound was concealed on her abdomen. The man who had lost his daughter, overwhelmed by grief, shot himself in a restroom and quickly turned into a zombie, but Trailer swiftly took care of the situation. Trailer's decision to accept the survivors, however, didn't sit well with Lysol, sowing further discord between them. To Lysol, allowing non-native survivors into the refuge posed an enormous risk. If any infected white individuals slipped through, it would jeopardize the safety of everyone. While Native Americans were immune to the virus, the zombies would still attack them relentlessly. Lysol believed the native community should seize this chance to build a safe haven exclusively for themselves. His views gained significant support among tribe members who felt they were the rightful guardians of the land. Unlike Lysol's extreme stance, Trailer took a more moderate approach. He believed the time had come to unite with any survivors, regardless of their background, to face the crisis together. He saw the suffering of Native Americans as a thing of the past, and now was an opportunity to stand as one. The growing tension between father and son eventually led to a serious divide, which would later threaten the security of the refuge. While Trailer and his team were out scavenging for supplies, Lysol, harboring deep resentment towards the white survivors, decided to greet the woman they had taken in earlier that day. His actions, however, led to catastrophic consequences. When Joseph arrived after hearing the disturbance, he found that the infected woman had bitten Lysol, severely injuring him. Though Lysol survived the bite, his quality of life had been forever altered. Lysol blamed Joseph for his fate, convinced that had Joseph not brought in those survivors, none of this would have happened. During their heated exchange, Lysol stabbed Joseph in a fit of rage. But his descent into darkness didn't stop there. Lysol, now fully consumed by anger, locked Joseph and the infected woman inside the refuge, planning to annihilate the white survivors within its walls. After breaking free, Joseph immediately sought out his mother, Joss, to warn her, but it was too late. The sounds of zombies echoed through the refuge, signaling its imminent collapse. As chaos erupted, one man, ignoring all warnings, insisted on leaving. The moment he stepped outside, a horrifying scream echoed through the air, signaling his gruesome fate. Meanwhile, Trailer and his team returned to find the gate unguarded. He immediately knew something was terribly wrong. Contacting Joss via walkie-talkie, he learned of the disastrous situation inside. Despite the overwhelming danger, Trailer resolved to rescue his family. They devised a plan, using loud music from their car to lure the zombies away, creating a distraction that allowed them to slip back into the refuge. Fortunately, they arrived just in time. Joseph and Joss were barely holding the door shut when they burst in. Calm under pressure, Gisigu swiftly chopped off a zombie's arm and managed to secure the door. Now was not the time to argue about right or wrong. Escape was the only priority. However, with so many people needing to evacuate, the process was slow and cumbersome. As they scrambled towards the vehicles, a massive horde of zombies breached the door. Trailer immediately opened fire, but the gunshots only attracted more of the undead. Gisigu, taking control of the situation, ordered the cars to move out. In the chaos, some survivors fell from the vehicles and were quickly overwhelmed by the pursuing horde. Trailer's situation worsened with every moment. Desperate to protect his wife and son, he made a difficult choice. Trailer stood at the front, but was soon overwhelmed by the swarm of zombies. Even though he was immune to the virus, being torn apart by the horde was still fatal. His sacrifice for his family was a noble one, and he died a hero. Joss and Joseph, devastated, followed Gisigu as they fled the refuge. Before they could even catch their breath, someone approached Gisigu, informing him that more survivors were awaiting rescue in a nearby church. However, this was all part of Lysol's twisted plan. Having completely lost his sanity, Lysol was now a dangerous threat, and Gisigu knew he had to stop him, even if it meant taking the life of his own kin. Gisigu and his team arrived at the church, swiftly neutralizing Lysol's accomplices. But there was no sign of Lysol himself. Unbeknownst to them, Lysol had cleverly planned this. His real target was Joseph's wife, Charlie, who he blamed for bringing the white survivors into their community. Just as Lysol unleashed the zombies from the trunk, prepared to feed Charlie to them, Joss couldn't take it any longer. She drew her gun, but Lysol, too far gone in his madness, wasn't listening to reason. Joss pulled the trigger, but at that moment, the zombies were released and rushed toward Charlie. Joseph arrived just in time to dispatch the zombies, but tragically, Charlie had already been bitten on the neck. Consumed by rage, Joseph confronted Lysol and, in his fury, stabbed him. Disheartened, Gisigu fired several shots into the sky as they prepared to leave. The noise attracted a massive horde of zombies, sealing Lysol's fate. In the end, as the survivors boarded a small boat to return to their indigenous homeland, Gisigu chose to stay behind. With Trailer dead and feeling like a man who had outlived his time, Gisigu made the decision not to join them. After a tearful farewell to his loved ones, Gisigu drew his katana and charged into the approaching horde of zombies, soon to be overtaken. Meanwhile, on the boat, Charlie gave birth to a baby girl. Though the child was white and lacked natural immunity to the virus, it seemed she had inherited Joseph's resistance, offering a faint glimmer of hope. In her final moments, at Charlie's heartfelt request, Joseph mercifully ended her suffering.